La segunda persona que hará la exposición es Sir John Daniels, de la Mancomunidad de Aprendizaje, Commonwealth de Aprendizaje. Él es miembro de este instituto intergubernamental, asistente del director general de educación de la UNESCO. Previo a ello fue presidente universitario por 17 años en Laurentian University en Ontario y en la Open University del Reino Unido. John Daniel fue nominado caballero por la reina Elizabeth por los servicios a la educación superior en el año 1994 y ha recibido 26 doctorados honoríficos de universidades en 15 países, con una innumerable producción literaria. Él nos ha solicitado un poco más de tiempo para el desarrollo de su conferencia sobre desarrollo de los cursos en educación a distancia. ¿De quién es el contenido? Literaria. Él nos ha solicitado un poco más de tiempo.
The 4th to the 6th of June in Cartagena de los Rios, and so that will be an important input to the global event in July 2009. So with this, I want to thank you. The red light is really looking at me very critically, and to thank you for this opportunity, and looking forward to talking to you later. Thank you.
So we want to thank you, Stamenka, for this excellent speech about educación a distancia, e-learning, online courses, why quality matters. La segunda persona que hará la exposición es Sir John Daniels, de la Mancomunidad de Aprendizaje, Commonwealth de Aprendizaje. Él es miembro de este instituto intergubernamental, asistente del director general de educación de la UNESCO. Previo a ello fue presidente universitario por 17 años en Laurentian University en Ontario y en la Open University del Reino Unido. John Daniel fue nominado caballero por la reina Elizabeth por los servicios a la educación superior en el año 1994 y ha recibido 26 doctorados honoríficos de universidades en 15 países, con una innumerable producción literaria. Él nos ha solicitado un poco más de tiempo para el desarrollo de su conferencia sobre desarrollo de los cursos en educación a distancia. ¿De quién es el contenido?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and to bring the greetings of the Commonwealth of Learning to this Cread Congress and virtual Educa Summit. It's a great pleasure to be in Ecuador for the first time. My only regret is that I was not able to visit the Galapagos, so I will have to come back. I would like to begin by congratulating Rector Romero on his election as President of the Inter-American Association for Higher Education. This is a wonderful tribute to his international status, and you saw earlier there are very few university presidents in the world who have the grasp of the environment in which higher education is operating that he showed when he spoke to us earlier. I feel a personal link to this association because I was working at the Université du Québec in Quebec City when President Gilles Boulet took the initiative of creating this association some years back. And then later, the Commonwealth of Learning was a founder member of Cread in 1993. Although the Commonwealth of Learning is based in Canada, our involvement with the Americas is almost exclusively with the Commonwealth Caribbean states. So I particularly appreciate the opportunity to speak to this wider audience from South America, and I hope we may renew the link between COL and Cread that existed in the early days. It's also a treat to share this session with my UNESCO former colleague Stamenka Uvelic-Trumbic, and as she told you, our organizations collaborate through a joint UNESCO COL work plan that she coordinates at the UNESCO end. My focus will be on the lessons that the Commonwealth of Learning is learning from working in the online world. To do this, I shall say a little about what the Commonwealth of Learning is before focusing on a unique program that we are facilitating for the Ministers of Education called the Virtual University for Small States of the Commonwealth. This program, which involves the development of courseware through online collaboration by people located in 30 countries, has made us engage deeply with the movement called Open Educational Resources, or OERs. Now, it's too early for any firm conclusions about where the OER movement is heading or what it will actually achieve in expanding access to education, but we would like to share our initial experience. So we've entitled this address, Course Development in Distance Education, Whose is the Content? And I've prepared it with the help of two of my COL colleagues, Paul West, our Director of Knowledge Management and IT, who also coordinates this Virtual University for Small States, and Amy Monaghan from our Information Resources Centre. Our first question will be, who owns the content? We shall discuss issues around the use of Creative Commons licenses and what are the strengths and weaknesses of the freedom culture, which in its extreme manifestation holds that all learning materials should be available for anyone to use, misuse, adapt, or resell in any way they like. Today it is risky to ask whose is the content, because having asked that question, we must make a foray into the deeper waters of Web 2.0, which is jargon for the current generation of the World Wide Web. The early web was essentially a display technology with limited opportunities to answer back, but Web 2.0 allows anyone to contribute and interact, as the rector explained so brilliantly in his talk earlier this morning. But what are the implications of this transformation of the web for the creation of courses? Students use the web for their blogs and social networking. Should they not also, therefore, contribute to the design of their courses within our institutions? Constructivist theories of education are in the vogue, so shouldn't we stand back and let students construct their own study programs? Now, where you stand on an issue depends on where you sit, so we must briefly describe the Commonwealth of Learning because most of you don't know about it. COL is an intergovernmental agency of the 53-member voluntary association of countries called the Commonwealth. And 20 years ago, the Commonwealth heads of government created COL because they thought that information and communication technology could help countries increase the scope, scale, and impact of education, training, and learning generally. And our role is to help the developing countries of the Commonwealth master and use these technologies. In recent years, we've linked this very closely to the International Development Agenda, and our slogan is Learning for development. And our philosophical stance on development is that of Amartya Sen. We consider development as freedom. But to root this commitment in practical reality, we work to a development agenda that combines 3 sets of objectives: the Millennium Development Goals, the 6 goals of education for all from the Dakar World Forum of 2000, and the Commonwealth values of peace, democracy, equality, and good governance. We offer our support to countries through 3 sectors: education, which means strengthening formal education at all levels; learning for livelihoods, which means increasing the prosperity of individuals and communities directly; and human environment, where more learning can improve health, governance, and the natural environment. Commonwealth of Learning is not a teaching institution. We help countries do things themselves, so we target 1 or more of 4 outcomes. First, technology promotes learning more effectively if you start with a framework of policy, which might be a national policy for rolling out broadband or an institutional policy for introducing e-learning. Second, much of our work helps countries improve their learning systems, whether through better quality assurance or through training in e-learning, 2 areas where we work with UNESCO. Third, whenever we develop an effective approach for using technology in learning, we try to distill it into a model. This is especially important when you want to transfer a successful approach from one country to another. You need to understand why the approach was successful and whether those conditions are present in the new country. And teasing out models has been very important for the virtual university for the small states of the Commonwealth, which we'll come to in a moment. And finally, although we don't develop learning materials ourselves, we help others to develop them. And then once the materials exist, we encourage their use around the Commonwealth. For example, the Commonwealth Executive MBA and MPA programs were developed by the 4 open universities of South Asia in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, but they're now being used in Guyana, here in South America, and in Jamaica, Malaysia, and Papua New Guinea. If you ask whose is the content about these MBA and MPA programs, our response is that any institution wanting to use them has to get a license from COL, because we developed these programs before the movement to open educational resources gathered momentum, so we didn't consider making them freely available in that way. However, we now want to focus on the question of freedom of use in connection with another much broader course development project, this virtual university for small states. And again, I start with a little background. A special feature of the Commonwealth is that 2/3 of its 53 members are small states with populations of fewer than 1.5 million and often much fewer. And these states, which include a number of Caribbean countries, are challenged by the e-world because they lack the critical mass of people, equipment, and bandwidth to advance confidently into the era of online learning. So in the year 2000, the education ministers of these countries decided that they would try to create the critical mass for e-learning by having their countries work together as small states rather than always remaining dependent on the bigger countries. And they called this collaborative venture the Virtual University for Small States of the Commonwealth, but I must emphasize that this is not a new university, but a collaborative network that will expand and strengthen the programs of their existing tertiary institutions. In other words, it will not compete with the existing institutions. The ministers asked the Commonwealth of Learning to coordinate the project and said that they wanted it to develop courses in employment-related topics like tourism, hospitality, small business management, professional development for teachers, life skills, disaster management, fisheries, construction, and so on. And they also asked that the materials be developed in e-learning mode, even though they might be delivered in older formats. So what did we do? We did not think it was feasible to launch the collaborative development of materials simply by having people log on to a common electronic space from their countries. Many of the subject experts did not have the required IT skills, and we also needed to create a sense of belonging and generate some collective momentum. So when we tackle each new subject, we bring the experts from the participating states together in one of the countries for a 3-week workshop. And this slide shows the first workshop that we held in Mauritius in 2006. Since then, we've held 4 more such workshops in different countries, and the most recent on fisheries took place in Seychelles last month. At each workshop, participants are given training in the techniques for collaborating online, and then they start to develop course content. And this process of developing content continues when they get home, so that a full program is gradually built up. And what we shall focus on today in order to address our topic, whose is the content, is the format in which we capture the content that is developed. Our practice has evolved with experience, and we would like to share that experience and learn about yours. We started from the principle that we wanted the VUSC materials to be freely available, not just to institutions in the participating states, but also to anyone, including all of you. So we decided that the participants would create their e-materials on Wiki Educator. This is a wiki that Cole created 2 years ago, and it works just like Wikipedia. Anyone can contribute to the evolving content, and it is now a very active site. However, because the aim of Wiki Educator is to make content freely available, Cole set stringent requirements for putting material onto it. The most restrictive condition on reuse that you can apply to material you put on Wiki Educator is the Creative Commons BY-SA license. And I was delighted when I arrived here in Loja to find that Rector Luis Romero, in another of his far-sighted moves, is bringing Creative Commons to Ecuador, and there will be a launch ceremony this evening. And Michael Carroll is here from Creative Commons, and if what I am now going to say mystifies you, please talk to him. But let me try to explain the possible restrictions on Creative Commons licenses. BY, reconocimiento in Spanish, means that if you take the material and use it, you must acknowledge who it is by. So, for example, that it comes from our virtual university life skills group. SA means share alike, compartir igual in Spanish. If you adapt the material, you must put your version back into the systems for others to use. Over time, however, we've discovered several reasons why these very stringent requirements actually work against the success of the VUSC program. First, the experience of the VUSC suggests that when a group develops courseware collaboratively online, it likes to limit access to the working space to group members, at least until they feel they have a presentable product. Now, it is of course possible to limit access to a wiki, although this is rather contrary to its anyone can contribute philosophy. More fundamentally, use of Wiki Educator for course development also precludes the inclusion of much useful material from elsewhere. A topical example mentioned already today is the large volume of OER material available through projects such as MIT's Open Courseware and the UK Open University's Open Learn. Because much of this material carries the non-commercial restriction, no comercial in Spanish, or the no derivatives restriction, sin obras derivadas in Spanish, in the Creative Commons license. And therefore it cannot be put on WikiEducator, even though this material is in fact freely available for the vast majority of educational situations. Similarly, VUSC teams often find that they would like to adopt good teaching material that is already in the public domain. For example, material on fisheries from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. But this again would not satisfy the stringent conditions imposed by WikiEducator, because the Food and Agriculture Organization retains some rights on the use of the material. Another aspect of this problem is the use of tools that are currently held on proprietary software, which is also precluded by WikiEducator. And specifically, the VUSC teams want to use the Commonwealth of Learning's highly successful instructional design template to structure their material for teaching. But this template is only available at the moment on proprietary software. And it provides an easy tool for educators who use word processors, and they can quickly learn how to apply heading styles and such like to their materials. To get around these challenges, COL has developed two approaches to the course development process. First, we search for good materials which frequently have the non-commercial restriction, and create a draft of new materials with any customizations on a word processor, apply the instructional design template, and share the result in Basecamp. Basecamp is an online project management service, this is part of the Web 2 again, that supports team discussions and accepts multiple formats of documents, which can carry any copyright. And Basecamp is used by about 1 million companies worldwide to manage teamwork. The second way of developing content can be used if much of the source material simply carries the CC BY SA copyright license, in which case we develop the course material on the wiki, we remove it once a good draft is achieved, we add any course elements from more restrictive licenses, and apply the instructional design template, and again share the result in Basecamp. And in both cases, the materials are then freely available. Let me also mention a more full-blooded use of WikiEducator, which is called Learning for Content. With the support of the Hewlett Foundation, we're giving teachers around the world the skills for developing content on a wiki. Workshops are being offered online and in each Commonwealth country, and there's no charge for taking this mini course, except that each participant must agree to create a short lesson and contribute it to the wiki. This project has only just started, so it's too early to assess the extent either to which teachers collaborate with each other to improve each other's work, or indeed make use of these lessons in their teaching. But these lessons are very short, they can all be created from scratch, so the CC BY SA license does not pose a problem. But as I was explaining, in the larger project of the virtual university, we want to make use of existing material which may have other restrictions. So we believe in approaching the issues of licenses for learning materials in a pragmatic way. We call this stance horses for courses, or what counts is what works. Although COL holds out the ideal of making materials as open and free for use as possible, trade-offs between openness and effectiveness sometimes have to be made in our view. In the last part of these remarks, we're going to broaden our scope further and ask briefly about the implications of Web 2.0. Today's web is a thoroughly interactive affair, very different from the one-way display system of the early days. Colleagues, friends, and communities of practice now use Web 2 as a common means of communication. And these applications, as the rector explained, have a variety of purposes. There are sites for social bookmarking, for custom searching, such as our own Col Knowledge Finder, for organizing micro-content, for social networking, for blogging, for podcasts, for video casting and webcasting, for collaborative writing, and for project management, such as Basecamp. These sites all attract a heavy volume of traffic, especially from young people, even though only a tiny fraction of the world's population range from 15 to 25 is yet online. So the evolution of these platforms and services is mostly happening outside schools and universities. Although some individual teachers are exploring and using the technology, educational management is responding, if at all, in a very ad hoc and uncertain manner. Let's hope this conference will change that. So how should institutions respond when students want to incorporate use of these applications into their university studies? Today we preach constructivist theories of learning, and when asked to list the capabilities that we want our students to have, we cite communication skills, critical thinking, problem solving, ICT skills, initiative, flexibility, and a mixture of independence and the ability to function in a team. However, much of our teaching, both in classrooms and at a distance, is still done in the objectivist style. We act as if knowledge is defined by experts. It is there to be learned and understood by students and then reproduced in examinations. There are right answers and proper ways of thinking. University teachers strive to be correct and authoritative, speaking with the clarity that comes from well-structured knowledge. However, if we truly believe our declared aspirations for students' capabilities, then we should be putting the onus on them to construct knowledge. And this means giving greater space for reflection, discussion, questioning, and argument, and for adopting greater equality between teacher and students. And of course, the Web 2 applications are a powerful expression of this equality because they discourage any sense of hierarchy. Now, it's important to understand that e-learning is not a constructivist approach to learning in and of itself, but it can facilitate such an approach if used well. So incorporating some of the Web 2 applications that we've mentioned gives students the possibility of creating and adapting content and finding valuable information from sources that may be unknown to the teacher. However, two caveats are in order. First, experience shows that the sophisticated use of Web 2.0 applications, as for example in some of the higher level courses in environmental policy at the UK Open University, requires more work from both students and teachers than the more objectivist approaches, although at the Open University both groups consider that the extra effort was well worth it. Second, it is ironic that web-based degree mills might claim to be the ultimate expression of the constructivist approach to university study. The student submits a CV, pays a fee, and gets the degree certificate of their choice by return mail. And Stemenka Ruvelic-Trumbic gave you some breathtaking examples of the audacity of degree mills. Sadly, these spurious operations will continue to flourish until governments get serious about protecting the integrity of their legitimate universities and employers make it a rule systematically to check the authenticity of credentials presented to them. And degree mills present a special threat to e-learning because some jurisdictions around the world, in an attempt to choke off the bogus web-based operations, have put an outright ban on the recognition of qualifications gained online. There's much more to be said about how new operations to course development are changing the concept of ownership of course content, and we can explore this further in discussion. But in this presentation, we've made two simple points. First, we should not be absolutist about the openness of an open educational resource. What counts is what works, and paradoxically, we may sometimes do more to extend access by placing some restrictions on the openness of the learning material. Second, Web 2.0 applications allow students to be more equal partners in the teaching learning process. However, this will not mean less work for teachers, and we must alert you to the sinister role of the web as a safe haven for spurious educational offerings. Thank you very much.
Thank you.